is everything stats. Let me show you an example, Kathleen, of what you wouldn't have to be able to do. Where were we yesterday? Objective number 9, I think, is where the stat stuff started, right? Okay, objective number 9. Did anybody notice that they had this weird, like using braces and like a storing arrow into lists to get stuff into those lists? Anybody notice that? Super gross, super nasty. Is it practical and helpful? Yes, and here's the reason why. If you had a lot of data that kept on going, and you were inputting, you might not catch an error where if you put all the numbers here and then you got to look at them all and check them all real fast, it is a better way of double checking if you have a lot of data to have it in this kind of screen rather than that kind of table. That's the one time it'd be helpful, but I would never ask or force you to do this tomorrow. Does that make sense? This is awkward, it's weird, you can just go to your list and put in the data. So am I going to ask you to list, what is an alternate way to input data into a table? No. I just care whether or not you can use the calculator. Does that make sense? So like from yesterday, calculator worksheet number 1, can you take a function and can you get an appropriate picture window using zooms, using manual? I don't care. Can you get a good picture of it to find the max, the min, the zeros? And you would need to have 2 of them. But can you find a good window and then can you do the stuff to it? Today, calculator worksheet number 2, can you take a list of data and do stuff to it? What are some things that you were asked to do to a list of data? Yeah. Good. Linear regression, or some of them didn't look like linears, right? They looked like maybe quadratic regression, or cubic regression. What are you doing when you use the regression features? Which regression regression features, where do you find them? How do you get to regression stuff? Hopefully you put in your data first, right? Which I didn't, but then stat and then over to calc. Okay, what are you doing with regressions? You're saying, hey, it looks like a line. Hey, it looks like a parabola. Hey, it looks like a cubic. Give me an equation. Give me an equation that seems to fit. How can you tell how well the equation actually does fit? Take the equation after you wrote it down, go to your y equals, put in the equation. You ready? What number is that, Kyle? Number 7, letter D. Did anybody get confused with the word superimpose? Guess what superimpose says? You have your point plot, your scatter plot of all your data. You take your regression, you put it in y equals, and you look at them together. Superimpose, put the function on top of the scatter plot. So superimpose just meant, oh, hey, take that equation, plug it in y equals, and see how well it fits. So for number 7, to finish calculator worksheet number 2, number 7, you should have had a point plot. You should have had a point plot, and then your regression should pretty well go through if you did it correctly. That's a part of number 7. That would be drawing the scatter plot and superimposing. A and D are done right there. Yeah.
I tried to graph it, it kept giving me errors. So I kept trying to see.
Does it still give you an error right now? Can I look at it? Oh, because yeah, let's see. Because you want to make sure that it's working for tomorrow, yeah? Were you able to figure out yours? Yeah. Okay, good. Commonly what happens with errors is either, as far as stat and edit in the list, either you haven't filled out all the information. For instance, right now if I tried to do stat plot on and then graph it, it would say nuh-uh, because it doesn't even have like y variables. If I filled in y variables, I'm just making up stuff now. If I filled in y variables and I didn't fill in all of them, it wouldn't work because it needs to have points for every, and it's like, I don't know what to do, so it doesn't graph. Or if, for any reason, you accidentally have more stat plots turned on than just the one that you want. Remember the old-fashioned way of doing that is second y equals. If you accidentally had, for instance, none of these would cause a problem. But if you had like a stat plot turned on that used list 3 and you didn't put anything in there, it wouldn't work either. Because you only did list 1, list 2. You can turn on the on, or you can, remember, just go up and highlight. Both ways work. So there are a lot of different things that can go wrong. You could, I gave you guys a quick hint at the end of yesterday. What zoom was very helpful for looking at the scatter plots of this data? Zoom Zoom box might be, but did you guys notice that your numbers were all over the place? Like maybe you had to zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, which is good, but there is a zoom for that. Zoom, oh, struggle. Sorry, I forgot we had all these letters. Zoom stat. Zoom stat says, as it goes away, Zoom stat says, oh, stat, I'll go in there and see the numbers and I'll make it a nice window that fits them all. It's kind of cool. Now, the hard part about Zoom stat, I don't think my stat is actually good right now, is it? I made it bad on purpose. Let me put some random number in there that'll make it like zoom out like 30. Okay. If I was to do, let's see, Zoom standard, I would see some of it, but I wouldn't see all of it. If I did Zoom stat, oh, this one actually probably is going to work. This one shows Zoom stat, the X and Y axis, because I had data points that were around it. But if my data points weren't around it, it could just show you like, hey, look, they're all right here. And you're like, well, where is that? You have no idea. Yeah, does it work? Oh, but like for instance on Tony's, it does show the points, but it doesn't show the y-axis. It shows little dotted lines, which shows that the axis isn't really there because it only zooms in on the points. If you want to see both axes, you need to go to Window and manually reset it to have some sort of negative number, like I'm going to go to -5 or something. Now all of a sudden I can see my axis again. So if you want to see where these points are, like in space, because it could be way over here when your X and Y are way over here, you might need to manually reset your window. But Zoom stat is a super cool zoom. Let's go ahead and, right now in the handbook, numbers 9, 10, 11, and 12, those are the stat ones, right? Did we do that yesterday? Okay, but 9, 10, 11, and 12, the objectives in the handbook, did we have any questions in the handbook about stat stuff and list stuff? 9, 10, 11, and 12. Nine was trying to make it look like this. You could have manually done it, or you could have tried Zoom stat. And then you might have had to go like a little bit negative for X min, a little negative for Y min. 10 was doing a regression. What did you guys get for your regression on number 10? Yeah, Jaden, what you got? Okay. Do you guys agree? -2x plus 8? Perfect. When you were answering in the worksheet, you didn't have to write y equals ax plus b, a is equal to, b is equal to. You can just plug in. Just write the equation. Totally good. That's perfect. Number 11, what were you doing? Oh, my numbers are different than yours? Oh, what was 9? Oh, 9 is a, if you guys didn't read, you wouldn't know that was the list you were supposed to use. Thank you. I forgot about that one. 10 is the last one.
11 was the last one. This is 12.
Got it. Okay. I need to bring those together, huh? Okay, so go to number 12. I apologize. So number 12, what did you guys do for this one?
Just superimpose.
Yeah, good. So the word, and I would put this in your handbook, the word for what they said, sketching the regression on top of the scatter plot. And this one happened to be perfect because it was an actual line. Well, my line's not perfect. Pretend it is. Okay? This one was actually perfect because it was a literal linear function that they gave you. But in the data for calculator worksheet number 2, if anyone did try to graph on top, it wasn't perfect. You had it kind of all over the place. But in general, the trend was the equation. That's more normal. But go ahead and put the word superimpose. This is what superimpose means. Putting the function on top of the scatter plot. Does that word make more sense now? If it didn't already. So superimpose. This is your number 12. I apologize. This is your number 12. But putting the function on top of the scatter plot. And you cannot do that unless you take the formula and you plug it into your y equals. Take whatever regression you get, linear, quadratic, cubic, whatever you're getting. Take that equation, put it into your y equals, and then graph. So you have your y equals, put the regression in, and then you need to go ahead and graph it. Is that cool? Okay, so that was your number 12. Then number 13 starts getting into like just playing with your calculator, right? Okay, let's go to calculator worksheet number 2, colored pen. Let's see what you got. Let's see what you didn't. If you have a pencil out, you are cheating. I should say, if you are writing with a pencil as we grade, you are cheating. I guess if you have it out, that doesn't make you a cheater. All right, here we go. I'm going to slowly scroll. There's just too much to fit. Fix number 6, don't worry, I already did. I think we made it 2.1 instead of 21. Made life a lot easier. All right, let me give you guys a few seconds to check 1, 2A, 2B, 3, and I think you can see 4A as well. Let me help out just a little bit. I know there's a glare sometimes. There you go. You don't have a different pen. Okay. For homework, use pen. Okay, from here on, and tests and quizzes, only pencil. And then you're going to need a different color besides black. So blue, red, green, purple, I don't care. You're going to need a different color so that when we do grading, see how there's purple and orange. Then you can show me what's right and what's wrong. Okay. Let me get a color pen for you now, Jason. So otherwise we'll take off points when I collect it. Oh, I apologize. I hit one thing and it did the other. Any other questions on 1 through 5? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the final answer is 38.259, but in context of the problem, I believe that's how many years, right? Give me a second. So then, the data above. No, think about the context. Isn't it from number 1? What was year 0? Oh, see, I was adding to 1,000. Yeah, so then 1980 would add 38.259, and then you would end up somewhere between, technically, you would say 2018 and 2019. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could get really mathematical and figure out the month and the day, but it's still an approximation. So yeah, I would say somewhere between 2018 and 2019. Thank you for that context. I was just solving the math and not giving the full analysis of the answer. So yeah, 2018, 2019 is the proper answer. Good job. Any other clarifications needed? Yeah. Yes. It's impossible to do a maximum if you don't have a function. What do I mean by that? They gave you a table, right? They gave you a table, and then they asked you to find the quadratic regression for that table, which is the function right here. And once you have this function, now, I went ahead and plugged in the actual rounded form. So if you had rounded anywhere else, if you had rounded to tenths or hundredths, or even like you didn't round as much as I did, you left more decimal places, this would probably change just a little bit because of the accuracy is going to be a little bit different. But ultimately, to find the maximum, you're not looking at the table. What you're looking at is the regression and saying, okay, if this seems to be the pattern, where would the max occur? So that would be a calculator problem where, this is full screen. Let me come over here. Putting in the function, I'm just going to do zoom standard real fast. I'm going to hit the on button because everything takes too long. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stat plot because my stat plot's not this problem. I'm going to throw in the -4. So you don't even actually need the table at this point. X squared. What answer did you get, Kathleen? 0.403 or 0.43? Okay. Did anybody else get 0.43? For number 4B, I believe. Okay. Oh. So you were looking for the highest. Okay. What they meant by this was the quadratic regression gives the actual, I'm going to do a quick, what's my data? Oh, zoom standard should work. even though the data shows like little snapshots in time, motion always moves continuously and usually in some sort of nice arc. So then when you see those points that seem to be in a quadratic manner or in a quadratic fashion, like how they were falling, then we make that entire model. And so even though the highest snapshot that we took was 0.43 was the highest, truly if you were to use the actual maximum feature, I have no idea what I just hit, so let's make sure we have max, number 4. Number 4 looks, or I should say using the regression, looks outside the table and says, okay, so we see these little snapshots, it's not the full picture, let's look at the full picture, which then gets you the 0.402. Does that make sense? Yeah, good question though. And it was good deduction to go ahead and say, oh, it's about 0.43, but from a table we can't ever tell the exact, we can only tell the approximate. Okay, anything else 1 through 5? Okay, I don't see weird faces or hands. All right, here we go. Back page. There's my superimposed. You guys match up on the 0.770? That's the one I changed. Did anybody match up on 0.770? Nobody did? What'd you guys get? Wait, what? 0.055, 0.276. Oh, all sorts of things. You were using the cubic regression, right? Okay. I did it real fast on my calculator. Let me make sure. 0.006 x cubed plus I didn't put 0.018. Did anybody else do a silly thing like that last night? I put 0.18 this morning when I was making it really quickly. Sad day. Okay. So then the correct value would be, I'm using my cool shortcut to do function notation, y1 of 2.1, 0.055. No, my B was actually correct because I did that one at a previous time. I just made the correction. So what I did is I plugged in the function into my calculator, and then I used value on your graph itself, plugging in 2.1. Or you could have used what I used was the function notation I showed yesterday, plugging in 2.1. And it should have worked if you plugged in by hand also, but you would have had to plug in like the 0.006 parenthesis 2.1 parenthesis cubed. Like it should have worked. Something could have gone wrong.
For B,
Yeah.
just put in 10 for X.
Careful. Did you guys get the difference between the questions? When it was saying value, what kinds of values was it talking about? Function value always means y. So when it says the function has a value of y equals 10. The hard part is, how do you set y equal to 10 on your calculator? Y equals, set y2 equal to 10. You can do y equals, set y2 equal to 10. And then you'll be looking for an intersection of when the current function hits the other function. So there were a couple different times, I think, in this worksheet where they asked you for the value of. And when you're doing the value of, it's 0.018 x squared, right? So when they give you the value of, that's a very great question. I'm glad you asked that. When they give you the value of, that means the y value. And the easiest way that I know of, and to be honest, kind of the only way the calculator can do this function or do this operation is if you guys put it in as a y1. Or I should say as a y. You already have a y1, so you'd want to go to y2. And when you go to y2, you might want to realize, wait, 10, that's like the boundary of my window. I better have y max go a little bit higher. Maybe like 15. but then that function will eventually somewhere hit 10. Now you might be like, oh, bummer, it's going to be over there. But we already talked about intersections. Just change your window, make it go. You can even just zoom out a little bit if you would like. It is going to eventually intersect. And the point of intersection, the x value, will be this one that I wrote down, which is the 10.587. Nice thing is, intersect is a really easy one to do. Ooh. Did I just mess up that problem altogether? Maybe I needed to fix number 6 more than I thought. Does anybody else match up with the 12.783?
Yeah.
All right, so I still need to keep my fix. Look at my calculator, not my work, or not my answer. There you go. Good thing I did that one, 12.783. I thought I fixed it, but I only half fixed it. Okay, so then number 7 and number 8. You guys have gotten to peek at number 7. It was the scatter plot with the superimposed regression. If you want, you can take a picture of this. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do a piecewise. And then tonight, you guys can go over anything that you missed and answer a couple questions right before the quiz tomorrow. I think we should have time because we have a full class period and the quiz shouldn't take the whole time. So then if there's something that you weren't able to figure out tonight that you got wrong on the worksheet, you can ask me then. But let me show you really quickly how to do piecewise functions, okay? Because that's the end of the handbook. And I think from what you guys were saying, that's kind of like one of the hardest things to do. Does anybody else still need to take a picture? Go ahead, it's totally fine. I'll have it up at the end of class too and take a picture as you leave to the assembly. It's also on the video, and it will also be, I guess not saved on the PDF notes, but it will be on the video. You can check it out there as well. That would be okay if I asked for an estimate. Does that make sense? But for tomorrow, I'll be looking for the decimals. All right, kiddos, at the very end of your handbook, piecewise functions. I'm just going to show you quickly the main idea of the piecewise functions. The very last one, number 20, not number 18. My numbering was far off. The last one, number 20, was tricky because you had to figure out the equations of the lines from the intercepts, like counting and saying, oh, the intercept is. My hint on number 20, this is your last problem, is to use y equals mx plus b. And remember, b, the y-intercepts, are where the lines hit the axis. So you're trying to kind of figure out the lines themselves. You're having to estimate a little bit as far as rise and run what you think the slope is. But you're going to make your own little piecewise function as far as for x less than 0 and x greater than or equal to 0. One line is to the left of 0, one line is to the right of 0, and you're trying to figure out what the lines are. But as far as putting those into your calculator itself, you need to walk through exactly what they tell you. And they show you, it's typed into theirs, but what a lot of kids get confused is how to find the pieces. This is literally just a division sign. Just divide, that's all it is, it's just the division sign. And then the other questions you need to find are, how do I get these inequalities and? Did you guys figure out where to find it in your calculator? Okay, so if you were in your y equals, yeah, you're going to go to second test, and that's where you can find those inequalities to type in. And then logic is where you find those connector words. The only connector word you really have to worry about is the word and the word and is how to do a sandwiched inequality and say, well, it's not only greater than or equal to 1, it's also less than or equal to 5. So the division sign, and then you want to use the second math button. I'm going to answer questions. I'm going to let you guys go. So I see a couple hands raised. They can go ahead and ask, but you guys can start heading out to the assemblies. I'll be here after school. I'll answer a couple questions if you guys still need some clarification on worksheet number 2 tomorrow. I apologize, number 6. Man, I still didn't fix them. Who had a question? Somewhere. Yeah. I'll take off for rounding error. Does that make sense? And if it's more than that, then I'll take off based on you didn't do it correctly. Yeah. For which one? Oh, it's on my website. Remember, you don't have to do Google. My website, you just type in tiny. I'll write it down, Jason. You can take a picture. Did you already write it down? tinyurl.com/duecmath.
I'm not sure, so can I take picture? Or I'll write it down. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and write it down. Or I can write it down on your syllabus too.